The movie begins at an upscale restaurant where Patrick Bateman dines with colleagues, their talk revolving around reservations, accounts, and status. Among them sits Paul Allen, a rival who handles the prestigious Fisher account, and Bateman watches him with barely concealed envy. The men trade insults about religion and taste, but Bateman stays quiet, polishing his polite surface. At a club later, Bateman orders a drink and mutters something ugly under his breath, the first crack in his mask. He whispers a violent wish to a stranger, but no one hears it, and the night moves on as if nothing happened. The next morning reveals Bateman's true obsession, a painstaking routine of skincare, exercise, and perfection. He describes every lotion, every scrub, every step with mechanical precision, as if assembling himself from scratch. But beneath the routine lies a chilling admission. There is no real Patrick Bateman, only an abstraction, something illusory. He can hide his cold gaze and shake your hand, but he simply is not there, and that emptiness will matter more than anything. At his office, his secretary Jean tries to help him with messages and reservations, but he criticizes her outfit coldly. He tells her not to wear that outfit again, to wear a dress instead, and she thanks him quietly, shaken but obedient. His fiancée Evelyn buzzes in his ear about wedding plans and roses, but Bateman barely listens. She wants to get married, but he refuses, saying he cannot take time off work, because above all he wants to fit in. At a party, Bateman suspects his friend Bryce is seeing Evelyn, while Bateman himself secretly sees Courtney, who is engaged to Lewis. He delivers a rehearsed speech about apartheid, world hunger, and civil rights, but his friends find it hollow and performative. The mask works on everyone, but it is thinning, and the cracks will spread faster now. At the dry cleaner, Bateman erupts over stains on his expensive sheets, screaming threats at the staff with sudden fury. He runs into Victoria outside and flirts smoothly, but his mind is already elsewhere, circling something darker. He calls Dorcia, the impossible-to-book restaurant, desperate for a reservation to impress Courtney. At Dorcia, he orders for Courtney with eerie control, selecting every dish she will eat. Lewis approaches and mistakes Bateman for someone named Marcus Halberstram, a mix-up Bateman files away for later use. He realizes Paul Allen also confuses him with Halberstram, and an idea begins to form in his hollow mind. The men compare business cards, and Bateman watches Paul Allen's card with growing obsession. Paul Allen's card has a watermark, and Bateman starts to sweat, his jealousy curdling into something dangerous. Outside on the street, Bateman approaches Al, a homeless man, and speaks to him with feigned kindness. He asks Al's name, tells him to get a job, then turns cruel, saying Al reeks and they have nothing in common. He gives Al money, and Al thanks him, but Bateman's face twists, and the kindness was never real. He whispers something savage at Al, the first open act of violence, and the mask slips for the first time. Later, Bateman stares at himself and confesses the truth. He has every human characteristic, but not a single real emotion except greed and disgust. Something horrible is happening inside him, and he does not know why, his nightly bloodlust now spilling into his days. He feels lethal, on the verge of frenzy, and his mask of sanity is about to slip. Remember those words, because everything that follows proves them. At a Christmas party, Bateman is mistaken for Halberstram again, and Paul Allen greets him cheerfully, unaware of what is coming. Bateman books a table under the name Marcus Halberstram, using the mistaken identity as a disguise. He meets Paul Allen at a restaurant, still pretending to be Halberstram, and Paul does not notice. Paul jokes that he would have to silence Bateman if he revealed how he got the Fisher account. But Bateman's silence means something far worse. Bateman brings Paul Allen to his apartment and launches into a monologue about Huey Lewis and the news, dissecting the music with the same precision he uses on his skin. He talks about conformity and trends, about the pleasures of fitting in, and the speech becomes a confession disguised as criticism. He puts on music, and his voice shifts, the polite surface dissolving, and he tells Paul to try getting a reservation at Dorcia now. He attacks Paul Allen with an axe, and his rival never saw it coming. But this is only the beginning of what Bateman will do. Bateman uses the keys he took from Paul's pocket to enter Paul's apartment, which overlooks the park and costs more than his own. He packs Paul's suitcase, staging a trip, and leaves a message on the answering machine saying Paul has been called away to London. He signs off with a movie catchphrase, and the disguise is set. But the question remains whether anyone will see through it. Days later, a detective named Donald Kimball arrives at Bateman's office to investigate Paul Allen's disappearance. Bateman pretends to be on a phone call, faking importance, while panic races beneath his skin. Kimball explains he was hired by Paul's family to look into the disappearance, and Bateman offers him water, trying to seem calm. Bateman lies smoothly, saying he barely knew Paul, then mentions Paul's Yale background and cocaine use to deflect. Kimball asks where Paul hung out, and Bateman lists clubs with practiced ease, but his hands betray him. Kimball reveals the answering machine message about London, and Bateman's cover seems to hold, until Kimball adds that Paul's girlfriend does not believe it. Someone claimed to see Paul in London, but the sighting was a mistaken identity, and Bateman's relief curdles back into dread. Bateman asks if this is a homicide case, and Kimball says not yet, but the word yet hangs in the air like a warning. Bateman ends the meeting abruptly, claiming a lunch at the Four Seasons, and Kimball watches him leave with quiet attention. Bateman approaches a woman on the street and invites her to his apartment, his charm masking the danger she is walking into. He calls an escort service, requesting a blonde woman, and gives the name Paul Allen, layering aliases on top of aliases. He tells the woman her name is now Christie, and she will respond only to that, asserting control before anything even begins. What follows confirms what Bateman confessed earlier. His bloodlust has overflowed, and the mask is slipping faster now. Days pass and Bateman returns to his routine, but the violence is escalating, and the gap between his two selves is shrinking. He meets Kimball for lunch, and the detective mentions the London lead fell apart, making Bateman's stomach tighten. But Kimball seems distracted by the food and the scene, and Bateman wonders if the detective suspects him or simply does not care. Bateman's grip on reality weakens, and he begins to see things that cannot be real: a bar sign, a park bench, a meal that defies logic. He takes Christie and another woman to Paul Allen's apartment, the place where his secret is hidden, and the night spirals out of control. Christie discovers evidence of what Bateman has done, and she tries to escape, but the door is locked and the night is far from over. Bateman chases her through the halls, and the polished banker dissolves completely into something feral and unchecked. He leaves the apartment building, and on the street an ATM displays a message that no machine should ever show. He reads the words and acts on them, pulling a gun, and the city around him does not seem real anymore, but the consequences are. He fires at a woman on the street, then at police who respond, and a car explodes behind him in a fireball that should be impossible. He walks away unharmed, convinced he is untouchable, but the explosion was too perfect, too cinematic, and reality itself seems to be bending around him. Back at his office, Jean picks up Bateman's notebook and opens it, finding page after page of drawings that reveal the truth about what lives inside his mind. She stares at the images, horrified, but says nothing, and the notebook disappears back into his desk before she can act on what she saw. Bateman calls his lawyer in the middle of the night, sobbing, and confesses everything, every act, every victim, every hidden moment. He says he has left a trail of bodies, that he cannot stop, that the violence has consumed him entirely, and he begs for someone to hear him. The next morning, Bateman goes to Paul Allen's apartment to check on what he left behind, but the door opens to a different scene entirely. The apartment is freshly painted, completely empty, and a realtor tells him to leave, saying she does not want any trouble, her words suggesting she knows more than she says. Bateman stumbles to a restaurant where his lawyer is dining with friends, and he approaches, desperate for acknowledgement of his confession. The lawyer laughs, calling the confession a brilliant joke, and says it is impossible because he had dinner with Paul Allen in London just days ago. Bateman insists he is telling the truth, but the lawyer dismisses him again, and the room moves on as if nothing was said. Bateman realizes the horror is not that he will be caught, but that no one is listening, no one sees him, and nothing he does will ever matter. Jean looks at him one final time with something between pity and terror, and Bateman stares back with empty eyes, a face with nothing behind it. He delivers a final confession that this confession means nothing, that his punishment is living inside himself, and the screen cuts to black on a man who was never really